In this lesson, we're going to save our visual setting preferences. And so if we open the game and set the resolution and then press save, when we reopen it, you can see that it defaults back to a different resolution. And so within our visual settings element class, we are going to define two new functions. The first one is going to be called save. And then within here, we are going to set the resolution index in our player prefs. And so we're going to create a new constant for the player press key. I'm just going to put it at the top where all the other variables are, and I'm going to call it resolution index. While we're here, we're going to create another constant for the player's pref key for the full screen value. And then in our save function, we are going to set the value. Now the player prefs doesn't have the concept of, or it doesn't support booleans, and so we have to convert it to an integer before we save it. And so a false value will become a 0, and then a true will become a 1. Next, we're going to create a reset function where we set the value of our current resolution. And then we do the same thing for the full screen. We need to make sure that we convert back to a Boolean. Now, in our constructor, we're going to check to see if the key exists in our player prefs. And if it does, then we are going to set the index accordingly. And if it doesn't, then we are going to set it to the current screen resolution. Now we're going to create a new mono behavior called settings manager. And then within our awake function, we are going to set the full screen and resolution. And again, we need to do this in the manager because we want to set the resolution when the game starts and not necessarily when the settings UI is opened. So we're going to set the current resolution to the resolution at the index we saved in our player prefs. So I'm going to grab the constant here for the player press key. Once we have the resolution, we are going to call the set resolution function, and we're going to pass in the resolution's width and height. And we are going to need to get our full screen value. So we can go ahead and grab that from our reset function. And while I'm at it, I'm going to grab the constant. Now we need to set the full screen to that value, and then we can pass in the full screen value. In Unity, we're going to create a new empty game object called Settings Manager. And then we're going to add our Settings Manager mono behavior. Before I forget, we're going to want to go to our settings element, and then we're going to query for a reference to our visual settings element. Then when the save button is clicked, we're going to call save on our visual settings. And we're going to do the same thing for the reset function. Now we can select build and run. If I open the settings page and change the values to say full screen mode and then a resolution of 1280 by 1024, and then we close the game and we reopen it by clicking the .exe. When it starts, you can see that it kept our settings. Now there's one thing I forgot, and that's when we set the current resolution index and the is full screen boolean, we need to call on value changed, otherwise it won't work. So let's build and run, and then we're going to try this again. So I'm going to open the settings page, and I am going to select full screen mode, select an arbitrary resolution, hit save. Now I'm going to change it. And if I click reset, it should go back to what I saved it to.